Welcome back to the Birdhouse Dynasty show, and today we are looking at some running back buys, and we are going to get things rolling, and we've got Matt English in the house. Hey, Matt, glad to have you back. How you doing?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me back in the Birdhouse. Glad to be back.
Yes, you were out of commission there for a couple of weeks, a little knee issue, right?
Yeah, I'm still a 40-plus-year-old child, and my brain tells me yes, but my body tells me no sometimes. And I'm dealing with a big no from my knee, and waiting on images to come back. So fingers crossed.
All right,
crossed, man.
Sounds like a lot of our players out there too. We're waiting on some returns on their injury MRIs. Not this guy, though. We're going to start off with our first buy, and that would be Mr. Bijan Robinson here. So Bijan's had a couple of rough weeks here. Tyler Algier's gotten into the mix. Kirk Cousins started slinging it around, especially last week, going over 500 yards. But Bijan is still, to me, still the most talented running back in the NFL. So let's get started, Matt. What are your thoughts on Bijan right now? Are you buying Bijan right now? And what should I say, what would be the max you would pay for Bijan right now?
Oh, 2 firsts. Because that's probably equal value. It's the most I think I would be willing to pay. Equal value. Yeah, 2 firsts.
Yeah, I'd say if I had the draft capital, like let's say I did have excess firsts in 25 and 26, and I'm contending, and I really need a running back, because running back's a position for me where I like to get it on the cheap. You know, I'm looking for the Kareem Hunts out there, the Rico Dowdles, the Jordan Masons of the world. Those are what I'm looking for, so that I can get my running back points cheap. I don't want to pay more than a second for running backs just because the longevity is not there. I want to use those first rounders to buy wide receivers or quarterbacks. That's how I dynasty, right? Now, it's not how everybody does it. And if you're already set at those positions and you're so loaded, then yes, I could go out and buy a running back. I mean, I have paid 2 firsts for Derrick Henry. Now, that was 4 years ago, but I have paid 2 firsts for Christian McCaffrey. Again, that was 3 or 4 years ago.
Sure.
So it would be the same thing with Bijan here. And if you're ready, if you're set at wide receiver with your starting wide receivers all nice and young and in their prime, and you got +1 on the bench at wide receiver, then sure, I don't mind it. All right. I want to win. I'm playing Fantasy Dynasty to win. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on the philosophy of actually paying 2 firsts for somebody like Bijan, Matt?
Yeah, so if I'm sitting there at 4-1 or 5-0, but I've just kind of crept my way in there somehow, either with schedule or I've just had great wide receiver play, like you said, my team's just dominant with its wide receivers, and I have the capital. Yes, I would be comfortable paying that to ensure that I had a top flight running back. I mean, look, his numbers are going to get better. They're going to get better. Atlanta is doing everything they can to figure out how to actually score points. And last week, they figured out how to do it after going 6 quarters dry of an offensive touchdown. They figured out some things in their passing game, and were able to move the sticks that way. So, and that was kind of a wild game as well. They were in position. I mean, they got down early. They had to throw it a lot. But I think they did figure out some things as far as getting the ball in the hands of their playmakers like Drake London and Kyle Pitts and even Darnell Mooney.
Yeah, I don't even want to really get into that game, but
I mean, look, Bijan's touches, his snap shares are going to levelize and everything will be fine. He is a super talented running back. They're not going to not give him the ball.
Right. I think that
more touch.
They play again in 3 weeks, and as long as Antonio Winfield's back for Tampa, I think we might see a little bit of a different result,
right.
Or at least those guys would be getting tackled inside the 5 or 10, and then hey, Bijan gets some red zone touches, some goal line looks, right? I mean, that's really ultimately what it comes down to when you're a running back, is getting those touches inside the 10, inside the 5. Those are the golden opportunities that we're looking for. And Bijan's still going to get some pass catches. Cousins still figuring things out. And obviously he's on the right track there with the Falcons offense. So I think that Bijan is definitely somebody you can look to go out and acquire if it's whether it's an owner that's a contender that's frustrated with him, or a rebuilder who just wants to pile up some first round picks and get his max points down so his draft pick is higher next year and he can acquire a different young running back in next year's draft.
If I'm buying him, if I'm trying to buy him, I'm not paying 2 firsts. Okay.
No.
If I'm really trying to buy him, I maybe go a first, and then if I'm an ETN owner, maybe I'm throwing ETN and a first, trying to get Bijan super cheap. Something along those lines, maybe a Ty Chandler or a Chase Brown in a first. I mean, I have my own beliefs about Chase Brown, but
sure.
If you're,
you love Chase Brown, and he's getting his opportunity now.
If you don't trust the trend, then maybe you're looking to say, hey, I'm going to get rid of him while he's high and someone's higher on him. So I mean, there's an argument.
Yeah, the process is important here. The reason we don't want to just throw 2 firsts at Bijan, which seems to make sense on the surface. I mean, his keep trade cut value is whatever, and it'll show 2 firsts is equal to Bijan. But the process here is, what if you had Nico Collins, right? And you're 4-1 now, or 5-0 because of Nico Collins. Well, now you don't have Nico for the next 4 weeks. What if you have DK Metcalf and he stays healthy through the first 12 weeks, but then he goes down, and then it's playoff time, and all of a sudden you got a hole at wide receiver. Well, you already gave up those 2 firsts now for Bijan, and now you got this big hole at wide receiver. Whereas if you did it creatively, the trade for Bijan, like you said, where you're trading a first and either an underperforming Travis Etienne or an now overperforming, not overperforming yet, but a sell high in Chase Brown. Then you still have that first in your back pocket. Then you can go out and throw a first at somebody that is producing at that current moment. And we don't know who that will be, because that's week 12, right? And that's who we're looking. That's who we're looking at. All right. Let's get into our next buy, and that would be Breece Hall of the New York Jets. Now, the Jets have undergone some a sweeping change this week in getting rid of Robert Saleh. I don't know that Robert Saleh was exactly the reason for Breece Hall's underperformance the last couple of weeks, but Woody Johnson seemed to think so, and so he let Robert Saleh go. With Hackett still there in the mix, what are you thinking, Matt? Is this going to continue for Breece Hall, the struggles, or are we're labeling him as a buy, so we're obviously not thinking he's going to continue to struggle this poorly?
No, not at all. I mean, this is a top 2 or 3 running back pre-draft. And then shortly thereafter, post-draft, even through the first couple of weeks here, or first 3 weeks, still happy with what you're getting from Breece Hall. Last week was concerning. The week prior to that, concerning, right? It's a usage thing, but then also look at the last week's game. They're in London. And, they're playing against the Vikings they got up early, and it's, their defense is not bad. Their defense is really, really good and opportunistic. And when the defense turns a pick six and you're behind the 8 ball immediately, it's just last week was a situational thing, I believe. And then some of it too, this is Aaron Rodgers' first season with the Jets. He got hurt last year. However many snaps in, he got hurt and did not play. So there's still a feeling out process. You and I have talked about this. There really is no preseason. The training camps and practices aren't what they used to be. So there's still a lot of feeling out process that goes on, not to mention the fact that there's a lot of handcuffing, I think, on the offensive side of the ball in what Rodgers is able to do, and then also with the personnel that's available. And then the creativity of the schematics. I look at what's on their roster and how it's being used. I watched a lot of that game last week, and I just don't get it.
Yeah, it'll come down to a point where you got somebody as smart as Aaron Rodgers, and he's eventually just going to take over the play calling basically himself. And what that means is, whether Hackett actually makes the right call that Rodgers thinks should happen, or Rodgers just thinks he needs to change the play at the line. And what it'll lead to is, Aaron Jones was very successful with Aaron Rodgers, and Breece Hall has a very similar skill set to Aaron Jones. And so there were weeks where Aaron Jones didn't perform so well when he was with the Packers. And but then there were those blow up weeks, and I would not be shocked one bit if Breece Hall goes for over 20 points in the next 3 games. So it's just a matter of shaking things up. I think that's what Woody Johnson was trying to do with getting rid of Robert Saleh. And, to be honest, I remember Robert Saleh when he was the defensive coordinator with the Niners, and he was just this exciting. He was geared up on the sideline. Like his players had to hold him back from being so excited because he was going to run out onto the field. And I hadn't seen that at all this year from Saleh. And so I think that's what the firing had to do with, more so than what actually was the play calls or anything like that. I think that Saleh just kind of stepped back too much. And I think that Woody Johnson really was just looking to shake things up. And whether that means that somebody else actually takes over the play calling for Hackett as well, I don't know. But again, Aaron Rodgers is too smart. He's shown us over the years that he knows how to play this game at an elite level, and he's one of the smartest guys out on the field since Peyton Manning. And I just don't see that the Jets continuing this downslide with their running back core that they've got between Breece Hall and Braylon Allen. And I think they're both going to start producing at a better rate in the games coming up. So go out and try and get Breece Hall if you can. Don't be afraid of the previous couple of weeks here. All right, next up, we've got another guy. This guy suffered a concussion this past week. That'd be Devon Achane. So Achane's got a bye this week. And then, of course, we're still waiting for Tua to come back, maybe week 8, week 9, week 10, somewhere in that range is what they're saying right now on Tua. So there's definitely some good reasons to be able to buy lower on Achane versus Bijan or Breece Hall right now. What do you think, Matt?
Yes. In fact, I mentioned this to you earlier. I'm trying to steal Achane wherever I can. And I say steal, that might be the wrong word. I'm trying to attain him at the best cost possible, right? Steal's pretty loose. I don't want people to think in our leagues that I'm trying to rake him over the coals or anything. But I am going to try and get him at the value that I see him at right now, right? This is a guy, he's got a concussion. We already know he's injury prone-ish. He got hurt twice last year, was out for some time. We all knew that was kind of cooked into his price a little bit. But his upside's so big, and if I can get him cheap right now, I want to do it. I want to do it because as soon as he's back in the saddle and Tua is back in the saddle and everything's running, everyone knows what this guy's going to put up. I mean, he's got I believe his floor is like 18, 19 points in a PPR league, a full point PPR with bonuses and stuff. Okay. If you're looking more standardized, maybe like his floor is like 12 to 15 points. But I love that. I absolutely love that because his upside is
Oh yeah.
I mean,
his upside.
So yeah, I'd love to get that. Get a big game or two out of him and then sell high on him again. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, the common denominator here between all of these guys we're talking about right here is just talent. The talent is what separates guys like Bijan, Brees, and now Achane. The talent is different than the guys you can get for like a second rounder or guys you pick up off of waivers who happen to just get the volume and start scoring points. You compare Achane to like Kareem Hunt, right? Who many of us probably scooped up off of waivers because he was basically left for dead, not having a team just a few weeks ago. And now all of a sudden he's the RB1 for the top team in the league. And he's scoring over 20 points a game. But the difference is that going to maintain for Kareem Hunt? We all know Isaiah Pacheco might be back this season. We don't know when, but it's very likely he will be at some point. So this, circus ride we're on with Kareem Hunt may end, and it may end come playoff time. And we don't want that to happen for our contending teams. So we know that the Dolphins, if they think they're going to be contending this season, they know they need Devon Achane. And are you concerned at all because Mostert was back and Jalen Wright also had a good game this last week? I know I'm not concerned about those two. When Achane's healthy, he's going to get his touches, whether it's through targets in the air or even if he just gets 9 or 10 handoffs, this guy can take it to the house on any of those attempts. That's how he got to 50 points a couple of times last year. And his upside is just through the roof.
Yeah, I wouldn't be so concerned about that. I don't think many people would be, especially when he drops, like you mentioned, a 50 burger here and there, or he's dropping you 30 or 40 points, depending on your league setups. I don't think anybody's concerned with that when those things happen, which he has the ability to do. He's already dropped over 30 points in, the league that you're displaying him in at 31, right? So in a 21-point game, but then when Tua was gone, look at his points. 9 and change, 4 and change, 2 and change.
Exactly.
Miami goes as Tua goes. Tua comes back, all your Miami pieces come back to life.
Yes.
So
the Miami.
Hold him. If you don't, go try and get him on the cheap.
Yep. The time to buy Miami Dolphins is right now. No other way to put it. All right, let's move over to Seattle and Kenneth Walker III. All right. So Kenneth Walker isn't necessarily considered on the level of the 3 previous guys we talked about, but if you look closely, he started, look at that, 7 catches last week. I mean, this offense that has been installed in Seattle by the I just can't think of his name right now, but the old Washington University offensive coordinator, he has slowly been showing that Kenneth Walker could be a 3-down back here. And so what are your thoughts on Kenneth Walker right now and buying into him?
I would be buying Kenneth Walker all day long. Because of the injury there in week 2 and 3, his value went down, but then he had a 3-touchdown performance in week 4. But then last week things cooled off for him, which kind of dips his value enough. Maybe you can go ahead and get him. Maybe there's one more chance to go ahead and buy low on Kenneth Walker, right? That's kind of how I look at it. I'm trying to pick him up where I don't own him. Everybody's roster setup is different, what their positioning is at this point. For where I'm trying to get him, I'm willing to deal some picks, player combination. Like I'm an ETN owner, so I'm going to throw him out there. I have Kareem Hunt. He's a guy I would use to try and bring in Kenneth Walker. Trying to think of some other guys I'd throw. Jordan Mason's a guy. I mean, there's been some positive news coming out on Christian McCaffrey, so maybe Jordan Mason's a guy you want to let go of. Plus, he's not a guarantee to hit pay dirt every single week like you would think. So, maybe it's a chance to get a little bit more security in Walker.
Yeah, I look at Walker just like the next guy that we're going to bring up here. Walker's only 23 years old. So if you're giving up a 25 pick, whether it's a first or second for Walker, you're not losing that age there as opposed to a rookie running back next year, right? And on top of that, you're already getting somebody in Walker who is producing right now. Okay, that whatever rookie running back you may purchase next year, he likely could be involved in another committee just because there's so many. I mean, every team has one running back right now, except for Dallas. But everybody's got at least one guy there in the backfield who's the main producer. And so just about any rookie running back who gets drafted next season is going to be walking into some sort of committee. And so then they're going to have time that you have to wait for production. Whereas Kenneth Walker, if you're using that pick right now that you have from the 2025 class, you're using that pick right now, then you're getting immediate production. If you're a contender, that's what you want, is immediate production. You don't have time to wait to get those points, to get those 15 to 20 or more point games. So that's why I like throwing a pick at him, and I don't mind it. I love the idea of just throwing a producing older running back right now at him, such as Kareem Hunt, even Jordan Mason, if you can get away with it. They're out there, the guys that are producing, and Rico Dowdle, that's not going to last. Okay. Yeah. I mean, somebody like Rico Dowdle, Chuba Hubbard, even both of those guys are in the last year of their contracts. Okay. They're not going to probably be there next year where they are right now. And they're just going to be some second or third stringer on whatever team they go to next season. So that's why you want to use those guys plus a second for Kenneth Walker. That's what I would try right now if you're trying to get help at the running back position, or solidify yourself for the future even. Okay. Yep. All right, let's get to the last guy here. And this is one of your personal favorites. You were touting him all off season. We haven't seen any points from him yet this year, but that might start coming up soon. What are your thoughts on Jonathan Brooks?
Well, if you haven't been trying to buy him, or you didn't have the roster space to get him, I think the train's leaving the station. I really do. I've got him where I've got him. Most everybody that I've tried to acquire him from is holding tight. Everybody's holding tight at this point because it's just tough. I mean, you're just going to have to come off a pretty penny in the leagues I'm in. Maybe not in the league y'all are in. I mean, that could be completely different. Someone might be tired of holding that IR spot and not getting anything out of it. Or maybe they don't have an IR spot and they're ready to dump him. All my leagues that you can have an IR spot do, and he's in one and no one's coming off of him right now, which kind of stinks. But I do know there's a price on everything. I just don't know if I'm willing to pay the price it's taken to get him in my leagues. How about you? Do you have any sort of flexibility there to get him off a disgruntled owner, or someone who's just impatient at this point and wants the guarantee?
Well, for me, Matt, I actually was able to purchase Jonathan Brooks in a couple of leagues last week, and it took a particular type of situation in order to acquire him. And the situation was the guy who had Jonathan Brooks, was in such a bad situation, such a bad rebuild, that he knew that Jonathan Brooks probably even producing this season especially, but even next year wasn't going to really help him, because this guy on both of the teams that he had, I traded with the same guy in both of these leagues. He was in just such dire of a rebuild that he knew he wasn't going to compete until probably 2026. So needing to wait that long, he was willing to give up a guy who he picked in the late first in both of those leagues for basically the price of a first and second. But in one league, I was able to get Jonathan Brooks and Khalil Shakir for that for a first, second, and a third I threw in. In the other league, it was, I'm trying to think what the other trade was. The other trade was I was giving the guy, I owned his 25 first, and I knew that he knew that. So I told him, I'm like, look, you gotta hook me up if you want your first back, because Jonathan Brooks isn't worth the 101 alone.
Right.
So I ended up getting Jonathan Brooks and decent wide receiver. I'm trying to remember who it is right now, but I can't think of it off the top of my head immediately. But anyway, point is that I got my money's worth for his 101, and the 101 I was looking at as a top flight wide receiver, either Tet McMillan or Luther Burden. Right. And those two guys don't compare to, Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, any of the top flight wide receivers that we've seen over the past 3 years, right? They're not Jamar Chase. They're not. Tet McMillan could be a very good wide receiver, but like his comp is Mike Evans, right?
Right.
And I love Mike Evans, but I don't know that he's an immediate difference maker is what I'm getting at. Whereas Jonathan Brooks, I know, is going to own this backfield for the next couple of seasons, right? Chuba Hubbard's doing great right now. Believe me, I've got Chuba in a few leagues and I'm loving it. But I know that that it's going to end here soon for Chuba once this guy comes in and starts getting some touches. Now, whether Dave Canales chooses to turn the backfield completely over to Jonathan Brooks or not, I kind of doubt it this season. But I don't mind buying into it because I know the play calling and the style that Dave Canales likes to do. So I believe that Jonathan Brooks will be getting every opportunity to just have mass amount of targets and rush attempts over the next few years. So that's why I didn't mind throwing a first at him in both of those leagues. One of those leagues I had McCaffrey and Derrick Henry. So I was looking for a way to inject some youth into the backfield. And I think that getting Jonathan Brooks was one. And it was exciting. I mean, the guy just decided he started throwing all of his guys out on the block, and he had a bunch of running backs. Brian Robinson just had gotten bought for a 27 first from him. So I knew the time to act was now if I was going to get Jonathan Brooks. And so, hey, I don't know. I'm waiting for McCaffrey to come back. I have Henry, but other than that, I was playing Najee Harris every week, and Najee is Najee right now. I mean, he just doesn't excite anybody, I don't think. So
all facts.
Yes. So that's why I was more than happy to go after Jonathan Brooks and the talent that's sitting there. So, all right. So that's our list of running backs to go out there and buy. Any other thoughts on some creative ways to grab running backs or some other teams you're looking at, Matt, that might be going out, actual teams in the NFL that might be going out and buying some running backs themselves?
Yeah. If I'm the Dallas Cowboys, trying to go find a running back. There's tons of running backs out there. I mean, look, Jacksonville's 1-4. And Tank Bigsby, Looked wildly efficient and great last week. I know Etienne's been nursing a shoulder injury, but I mean, they lose this week again. I mean, it might be a fire sale on Jacksonville's on some of their players. You know, Etienne could easily be on his way to Dallas. I wouldn't mind having him in that offense. There's been plenty of speculation of a Dameon Pierce. I know he returned back to practice this week for Houston. But I mean, Mixon's unavailability might not make that trade possible. There's just all kinds of running back. My point is there's tons of running backs out there who might just be riding your pine right now. But a quick little trade here as we get closer to the actual trade deadline. But as we get into the season and teams figure out what they have and don't have, you're going to see some player movement that could impact your fantasy, especially as it applies to the Dallas running back. I just don't think they're going to sit there and run the rest of the year with Ezekiel Elliott, Dalvin Cook, and Rico Dwaddle. You can't seriously go to the playoffs with that backfield. You just can't. You cannot.
No, I think Dallas has got to make some kind of move and try their best. Jerry Jones, please try your best and actually go out there and get a running back. Don't send a bag of toffees to someone like you did with Derrick Henry. That doesn't get it done. Okay. go out there and make a move. All right. You saw what Derrick Henry did to you. Now go out and do it to somebody else. Go get it done, Jerry. All right. That's all we've got on our running backs. We'll be back in a little while with our wide receiver buys. So be sure to check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show, and at buymeacoffee.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show. And I'll remind you all, never stop working.